Take your seats. Good morning. What is that? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
You are, for the record, Hassan Ali Joho, EGH.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
You will appear before this committee and you are going to answer to the questions that we put to you on oath. So you opt to take the oath either on the Holy Quran, the Holy Bible, or the Holy Gita, the Hindu Holy Book.
The Holy Quran.
You may be upstanding. Take the Holy Quran in your right hand and recite the oath.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I, Hassan Ali Joho, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I'm told it's not caught on record. Get the... Yes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I, Hassan Ali Joho, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
You may take your seat and sign the oath. Next to that, nominee, hand your original documents to the sergeant to pass on to the clerk for verification against what we have on you. We'll start with introductions. This is a committee on appointments of the National Assembly of the Republic of Kenya. Committee mandated to interview, in some jurisdictions called approval hearings, in others called vetting, to assess your suitability or otherwise to occupy office to which His Excellency the President has nominated you as Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy, and Maritime Affairs. We'll start with introductions. Yours truly here is the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairman of the committee. On my right is the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Gladys Boss. On my left is the Clerk of the National Assembly, Samuel Njoroge. I'll invite members to introduce themselves, starting with Honorable Naisula.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
Kimani Shongo.
Junet Mohammed.
Nelson Koech, Belgut.
David Kosing, MP Poko South.
Gikaria David, Nakuru Town East.
Masemeri, Teso South.
Abdul Rahim Daud, North Imenti Meru County.
George Gitonga Murugara, MP Tharaka, Tharaka Nithi County.
Owen Baya, Kilifi North.
Robert Mui Kadhiani.
Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu.
Dido Raso, MP Saku.
Abdi Shurie, MP Balambala.
Mishimboko, MP Likoni.
Rehab Mukami, Nyeri County.
Caleb Amisi, Saboti.
For purposes of these proceedings, you will be referred to as nominee. So every member asking questions will address you as nominee, and that's what you are before us. So we'll start in earnest by asking you to tell us your name, your educational background, your work experience, and your key competencies that make you suitable for appointment as cabinet secretary. You have under 5 minutes to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, it is indeed a great honor to be in this house. Mr. Speaker, even though I must confess that I was used so much being on the other side when I was a member of parliament with you in the 10th parliament. But Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the favor upon me. And also thank His Excellency the President, Dr. William Ruto, for nominating me for the position of Cabinet Secretary, Mining, Blue Economy, and Maritime Affairs. Mr. Speaker, my name is Hassan Ali Joho. I was born and raised in Mombasa. I went to Tomboya Primary School in Mombasa, and later Serani Secondary School in Mombasa. So, Mr. Speaker, I have a bit of a different approach on how I want to present my introduction, because I started work and then further education came later. So after I finished secondary school, I ventured into business, entrepreneurship. I set up a clearing and forwarding company in Mombasa, then later diversified to opportunities in fintech, a bit of real estate, and largely logistics. Mr. Speaker, that takes about up to 2004, where I started my grassroots engagement. I ran in a by-election that was not very successful, but taught me many lessons. I became the chairman of LDP in Kisauni constituency. Then in 2006, I embarked on a journey to acquire my first degree. So in 2006, I did a bridging course to enable me to join university teachings. I did a diploma in 2007 and eventually graduated from Kampala University in 2013. Thereafter, Mr. Speaker, I did another degree from Gretsa University. And then I enrolled myself.
Where is Gretsa University?
Gretsa University is in Thika, in Kiambu County. Thereafter, I enrolled in Harvard Kennedy School of Government for a program known as Public Leadership Credentials, which is basically a pathway to attain mid-career master's degree on public administration. Mr. Speaker, I am the pioneer governor of Mombasa. I got elected in 2013, but before that I was a member of parliament for Kisauni, the 10th parliament, where I served in different committees. I served in the Committee of Foreign Relations, Defense and Foreign Relations, which I was a vice chairman, and several others. I served as an assistant minister for transport during the Kibaki administration. I was governor for one term and another. So I served my 2 terms as governor of Mombasa, where I must say I drew a lot of experience in matters governance and transformational ways of doing business in government, Mr. Speaker. And the record speaks for itself of what I was able to achieve in Mombasa. In matters health, in matters basic infrastructure, in matters early childhood, and obviously lots of social programs that would cushion vulnerable families from the day-to-day challenges of our lives. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'll now invite the Deputy Speaker to be the first to ask you a question. And like I said, answers must be concise, precise, and to the point.
Honorable Joho, the nominee before us, you're nominated to be the Minister or the Cabinet Secretary for Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. And what Kenyans would like to know is that what do you see as the most pressing issues facing the Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs that ought to be addressed immediately? And so if Parliament approves you, how do you plan to tackle the issues, considering the fact that the blue economy, if properly used, has the potential to, it's been said, has the potential to inject up to $4.8 billion into Kenya's economy and create over 50,000 jobs. So let's get your vision of what you do if approved by this House. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I must say that after I was nominated by the President, I took a little bit more time to do some research. And I want to state before this honorable committee how I see mining and blue economy and even maritime affairs. Probably that should be our focus. It actually should be our new economic frontier. Mr. Speaker, I saw, for example, that the mining industry contributes slightly under 1% of our GDP. So that led me to do some quick research that leads me to tell you what I think we should do. Mr. Speaker, we have to find, first of all, ways to generate confidence to investors and the Kenyan people. Mr. Speaker, I want, if you nominate me, if you approve me, I want to be a CS that listens. I want to listen. And I have learned that if you take time and listen to stakeholders, there's a lot of information and data that will enable you to make the right policy decisions, create legal frameworks that are responsive to the demands of the moment and attractive to investment. So what will I do first? Listen. 2, involve stakeholders. 3, do an audit of our HR capacity. We do our technological capacity audit and relook at our legal frameworks and our policies. Are they attractive to investment? And if they are not, I must embark quickly on coming up with the proposals and policies that do respond. Because, Mr. Speaker, there is absolutely no way that our neighboring countries have surpassed by far the 10% mark on GDP contribution. Yet there is a lot of, I want to call it speculation for now, because I don't have the data, neither do I have the real information of the kind of geological minerals that this country have. And I'm looking forward, if I get approved, to get the real data. So there are certain quick things that we must do to ensure that Kenya becomes an attractive point of investment, particularly in the area of mining, blue economy, and maritime affairs, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. CS nominee, let me begin by asking from your academic credentials that clearly looking at them bottom up. And having said how you began your journey for getting your degrees all the way to Harvard, Kennedy, so it's Kennedy what? Kennedy School of Government.
School of Government.
What would you tell young Kenyans who may have started off life like you in terms of being able to pursue academic credentials later in life? That would be one. Two, you come from a region where the blue economy, as you say, holds very huge potential to create employment. And I'm sure probably from your research you may have known that there have been efforts by the government since 2015, 2016 to try and get Kenyans to work in the Caribbean, but have had problems accessing visas to travel through the US. What will you do as Cabinet Secretary to ensure, one, that we are able to train as many young people to work in the maritime industry, because there is a very huge potential, as you say, to create jobs in that industry. What will you do to help Kenyans, one, train, two, access jobs even outside the country? The other question would relate to the mining docket. There is a lot of unregulated and unlicensed and what would be tantamount to illegal mining around the country. What will you do as CS to ensure, one, that any player who is in the mining industry in Kenya is licensed and regulated, and that also involves things like quarries. You've seen the recent cases in Nairobi, in quarry here in Embakasi, where abandoned quarries are left unfilled. They have now become graveyards for criminals. They are dump sites. What will you do to make sure that anybody who is involved, even in quarrying, is one, taking care of the environment, especially in getting to refill many of these quarries, and that industry is well regulated and anybody and everybody engaged in it is licensed?
Nominee.
Mr. Speaker, I would have been completely surprised if I was not asked the question of education.
Yes, Jeanette. Okay.
Let me add something.
We can go on and ask your question.
Oh, okay.
Take those two.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the nominee two questions. The first one, Mr. Speaker, just to add to what the majority leaders asked, this issue of the education background. Mr. Speaker, I think the nominee needs to, he has alluded to that now he's in the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. We want to ask him to clear this matter, because this matter, it comes up during elections and goes down after elections. It comes up during elections, goes away after elections, you win the election. We want to slay that ghost today here. Can you share with us from the beginning to the end how it went? And my second question is that where I come from, Lake Victoria is next to it. What do you think what will you do as the Minister for Maritime to improve the lives of the people there in terms of fish industry? The fishing industry is almost collapsing. What programs do you think you will put in place to make sure that livelihoods are supported there by the people who are doing the fishing business or fishing in the Lake Victoria area?
Chair, maybe since he had begun answering that one on academic credentials, besides what you would say CS nominee to young Kenyans, and from what Jeanette is saying, it's clear that many people who serve in public office suffer certain prejudices from Kenyans regarding the academic credentials and all that in your past. Probably you can contextualize that in that. I am certain there are many Kenyans who are surprised that you can even converse in English. There are many who are asking how you would be able to be vetted.
I understand.
You cannot converse in English.
I understand, Mr. Speaker, and I must first of all say it is almost normal for people to cast doubt of Wapwanis. Sometimes, and Owen Bai and Mishi Mboko probably will bear me witness. But we can and we are as qualified as any other Kenyan. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to walk you through my educational journey and where I drew my inspiration.
More than what you did?
No. To respond to the question,
Okay.
I want to walk you through how I achieved what I achieved, and I'll continue to achieve.
With brevity.
Without a doubt. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to mention that I drew my inspiration from one Professor Ali Mazrui. Professor Ali Mazrui did not succeed in his Cambridge examination to be admitted in the university to attain his first degree. That aside, Mr. Speaker, I want to mention to this House.
Ali Mazrui is one of the most
renowned scholar
and admirable scholars.
We love him. He's one of our own from the
He's
coastal
not
region.
just the coastals. I love him even more. I named one of my
You must.
I named one of my brothers Mazrui.
Mr. Speaker, there is absolutely no way you cannot love Ali Mazrui, given his contribution to basically the general well-being of our society. But Mr. Speaker, this is the point. I want Kenyans to know that historical struggles are real. Are real. Someone should never imagine for a minute that if they come from places or spaces of comfort, that there may be a level playing field for everyone. Some of us come from very poor background. Mr. Speaker, if you look at my CV, you will see I actually had to take a break for 1 year, transiting from primary into secondary. Why did I do that? Because simply my parents couldn't afford school fees. I was not living in an environment that allowed me that opportunity to be able to quickly prosper in matters of education. That is why, Mr. Speaker, I can tell this committee today, and I want many Kenyans to listen to me. Do not ever imagine your hope dies by your previous struggles. We suffered. But what gives me pride is that we could turn that around. I actually turned it around. When I found the slightest opportunity for self-improvement, which I believe is a continual process, I grabbed it. And I'm glad to the laws of the country, laws of the land, there are processes that allows someone to improve and progress in matters of education. So yes, I did not do well in my secondary school. I got a D-, no doubt. But Mr. Speaker, I turned that around. Today, as I sit here, I hold 2 degrees that are before you. Mr. Speaker, I am on my pathway to attain a master's degree from the most prestigious university in the world. And that is achieved by determination. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell Junet, Honorable Junet, that first let me begin by telling Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. Kimani Ichung'wah, I contributed to my own school fees in secondary school. I had an understanding at that time with my principal that he released me earlier than any other student because I needed to go work. And I did. And I contributed. At that point, what was my priority? To conclude KCSE. And I knew deep in my mind that I will always in my life have a chance to further pursue and acquire more knowledge. And like I said, I would have been very surprised if this question did not come up, because it comes up every time there's an opportunity for me to do something. Every time. It started when I was running for MP. It started when I was running for MP in 2007. Big conversation. And that time they even actually said that my nursery certification was fake, my kindergarten. But we succeeded. When I was running for governor, Mr. Speaker, and I'm saying this so that I hope we can bring this to a permanent closure. When I was running for governor in 2013, it also became one of the biggest campaign issues. I know there were even attempts to bribe some people in the institutions that I was with. Somebody once told me, someone came to me and told me, Bana, we've been told to suspend your degree, to purport we're undertaking some investigation, just to not to allow me to meet the required timelines to submit my papers. But we overcame that and moved on. Then, Mr. Speaker, you also will remember, because it is a matter of public knowledge, the administration of President Uhuru Kenyatta, particularly the first term, had quite some issues with me. So again, there were those who felt that they may have an opportunity now to permanently remove me from the political equation by dealing with my education credentials. So, Mr. Speaker, I report before this House, there is no government institution, be it Higher Learning Commission, DCI, EACC, even a judicial process, that has not investigated my credentials. And I commit before this House. In fact, they should be looking at this space. Probably if we succeed, if you nominate me, and we do well, the next, if I'm approved, the next vetting, you should see a PhD, Mr. Speaker. I'm telling you, watch this space. If I come back here, if God wills, you approve me, we do some real work, better the lives of the Kenyan people, you'll call me Dr. Hassan Joho, the next one, sir.
What
Mr.
was
Speaker, on the other matters.
Hold that. What was the outcome of the judicial challenge on your papers?
Mr. Speaker, they lost. And I actually know who sponsored the process, but they lost. You cannot take what is rightfully mine. It's as simple as that.
Go on and answer the other questions.
So they lost. And I know, unfortunately, there's an old man there in Mombasa, an 82 old man, who keeps sponsoring people to pursue the, and I'm sure probably...
Focus on your suitability.
Mr. Speaker,
yes.
I want to answer the question by Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah on the blue economy. And I want to combine it with maritime affairs. And I like the fact that you particularly picked on the job opportunities. Mr. Speaker, this ministry is a wealth creation ministry. This ministry is a great employment creation ministry. Now, just to give you some statistics, today, the global demand on seafarers is almost at 1.9 million. We in Kenya are contributing barely 0.2%. So out of, basically what I'm saying is out of the 1.9 million, we have just about 4,000 Kenyans that are getting into the industry by way of employment. Now, what are we going to do to change that? Number one, we must redesign our training program to fit into the demand of that opportunity. And I know there's quite some work that was done previously and continues to be done, but we may need to have a conversation. And if approved, I'm going to be running back quickly to this august house to engage honorable members on realigning the policies around training to be able to fit the demands. And I pick particular example. If you train someone to board a vessel, how you earn or how you get opportunity to be employed is almost similar to that of a pilot. So even as we see today, we have probably a good standard of training issued or undertaken at the Bandari Maritime Academy. But Mr. Speaker, everybody that graduates from Bandari Academy does not automatically qualify to get a job because they don't have something called sea time. They don't have sea time. They have no avenues to get sea time. So that for me is a matter of urgent intervention to ensure we combine our training with sea time, even if it's just basic. Nobody will employ you if you have never been on board a sea. So that is one area of policy realignment that I'm going to have to engage this Honorable House. The other important area, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the statistics today, countries like Liberia are carrying 100 or plus more folds of their flag in vessels. We in Kenya, we're just about 5. From what I've heard from private sector, I've engaged the shipping industry, and I have been told, Mr. Speaker, the vessels that are carrying our flag are just about 5. What this therefore means is that our young people cannot get an opportunity because there is no level playing field. What do we need to do? Look at the policies. What is Liberia doing that is right that we can't do? What is it? Because we have so many vessels calling into our ships. What a local flag means, Your Excellency, is that the revenues generated, first of all, from the vessel will land in Kenya. Priority in terms of job opportunities will be for Kenyans, and opportunities to even design some internship program for attaining sea time. It is easier to take to Kenyan companies, and I'm going to do that. I think, Mr. Speaker, and I'm clear about it. Let me say I'm clear about it. If you approve my nomination, I will hit the ground running. It certainly shall not be business as usual. It will not, because I see. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, so that I give you the context on how and why it is urgent that we quickly realign policies that conform to the needs. It is because seafarer, by all standards, qualifies to be a prestigious job. There's no seafarer, at whatever cadre, there's nobody who earns less than $1,000. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll quickly run. The other question is on the fishing fork, and Mr. Junet, Honorable Junet, talked particularly on the lake areas, and I'm imagining he's looked at the demography well, because I was just looking at some statistics. And I looked lake areas from Uhuru Bay, you pass Siaya into Soiport, Sioport in Busia, and the numbers that are produced. Nothing justifies that our neighboring countries are processing more. Understood that they may have a lot of, the area might be wider, but they're processing 100-folds more, particularly for export. What do we need to do? And I've seen this problem, for example, in the fisher folk and artisan fishermen in the coastal region, from Kiunga to Lungalunga. And government has put some effort. Let me just acknowledge. Government so far has given boats and some storage facility. And they're building landing sites that are some complete and some yet to be complete. But that alone doesn't solve the issue. There is the issue of capacity building. these fisher folks, these artisan fishermen and women should be trained. Should be trained in how many fronts? One, processing, basic business skills, storage, and value addition. Mr. Speaker, growing up in Mombasa, I used to see a company that used to be called Wananchi Marine. That company was employing on a daily basis not less than 3,000 women to do fish processing. But as we sit here today, Mr. Speaker, there is no single factory that I can directly point at that does the same, and it's going to be my business. Number one, to create a lucrative environment for investment. You have to combine private sector investment, government support, and people's participation. And idea number one is, for example, if we want to help the fisher folks and fishermen generally, we must develop strategy like creating collection points. And I tell you, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, why I say that, because one boat goes out, comes with possibly 20 kilos, and they are likely to be possibly around maybe 100 boats of such capacity. But everyone who comes don't call into the same landing site. What do? They find means to buy ice blocks and store. But imagine if we put them in a cooperative, manage them and organize them, train them. You arrange collection points. Why we don't export our fish very well is because we don't consolidate it. We don't consolidate our catch. So for me, I should have a truck picking from Kiunga into Owen Bay's constituency, Owen Bay's into Mombasa, into Kwale and Shimoni. Consolidate it so we bring adequate catch that will qualify for even export market. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ichung'wah talked about on restoration program of quarries. There is a law in place, but it's not enforced. What do I think needs to be done? Number one, we must create synergies with county governments. Why do I say so? They are beneficiary of the royalties. We must train and encourage the Kenyan people to abide to the required environmental standards. Number three, we must work on our enforcement, and this will require a multi-sectoral approach that I'm probably going to initiate. And maybe on the policy issue is that we may consider requiring or requesting, when you are licensed to mine, so that we are assured you will actually work on restoration, create a bond, a surety bond, whether by way of bank guarantee or whatever formula that works, so that you deposit it in government, a similar amount or an estimated amount. So if you don't restore the site that you've mined our geological wealth from, we have bonded you. So you just don't walk scot-free. Mr. Speaker,
you've answered all the questions.
I think I have answered all the questions.
Good.
I thank you.
Those who have never heard of Ali Mazrui, I encourage you to read a few of his books. Africans, A Triple Heritage, Africa's International Relations, and Africans from Slave Ship to Spaceship.
Mr. Speaker, if you have some extra copies, I'm going to pick some from you.
Pardon?
Good. If you have some extra copies, I'll pick some from you. If you've read, unless you're collecting them.
I'll share with you. Naisula?
Thank you, Chairman. To the nominee, during your preamble, you thanked His Excellency the President for nominating you, and that is why you're before this committee. You are in public having said, and I quote you, "I don't ever dream of engaging with Ruto." Mimi niongee na Ruto? Niongee na Ruto nini? I want to put it to you that if this committee nominates you and the National Assembly approves you, you'll be sitting in a cabinet where His Excellency the President will be chairing. I would like to know whether mutaongea nini kwa hiyo cabinet. But that's beside the point. I want to get to the real issues. But that's also a very valid question, because it will be important to know how you will engage as the minister, if approved, cabinet secretary, and with His Excellency the President. Now, there is tax exemption on exploration and accumulation of exploration expenses for offset against income upon full commercialization. What I would like to know is, do you think exemption should be tied to certain activities and for certain duration of time? There are people who are exploring in this country in perpetuity for 30, 40 years, just so that there is tax exempt. And I suspect they've actually explored, and they've gotten the gemstones or whatever they're exploring, but because of the exempt, they continue to say they're exploring. To my last question, the Mining Act prohibits civil servants from dealing with minerals. According to Article 81 of the Mining Act, no person, whether civil or military, and serving in government is allowed to directly or indirectly acquire or hold any right or interest under any prospecting right. Despite this provision, high-ranking government officials, public officers, state officers, and civil servants are involved in mining. And I'm sure some of them have started looking for you since you were nominated. What mechanisms and plans will you put in place to ensure that revenues from gemstone mining do not end up in the pockets of cartels without disclosure? Actually, I thought cartels are only in agriculture, health. I've come to realize during this appointments committee, cartels are everywhere, including mining. And how do you intend to protect and shield communities from unscrupulous miners and cartels?
Nelson Koech.
Mine also was a quick one too, on the same gemstone. Late last year, the president had this launched, it's called a Voi Gemstone Value Addition Center. It is ill-equipped nominee. I don't know what you will do to make sure that there is value for money, and the small-scale miners are also able to be able to sell their mines in Voi Additional Center, Gemstone Additional Center. Number two is the mining law sets up several mechanisms which Kenyans can enjoy direct benefits from minerals. That is, for every sale of mineral, proportion of value of mineral is paid to the government as royalty, which is shared between national and county government and mining communities in the ratio of 70, 20 to 10, respectively. How then will you do differently to ensure the same is adhered to mining communities and county benefits?
Nominee.
Honorable Naisula, you talked about exploration, but my research tells me, and I'm yet to get a detailed brief from the ministry, that you're imagining there are people doing exploration for 30 years. There are people doing prospecting for 40 years. How that makes sense, I have no idea. Whether it happens anywhere in the world, certainly it cannot be. How do you prospect for 40 years? So we need to quickly relook into our policy, Mr. Speaker. We can't as a country. And this explains why mining GDP's contribution is under 1%. It can't continue like this. It can't continue. And Honorable Naisula, you are very right. If you thought you saw cartels, I've come to learn within this short period of time that I've been nominated, there are greater cartels in the mining industry. And Mr. Speaker, if you approve me, that is where I begin. Remove the cartels, remove the brokers. Mining industry in Kenya cannot be a market of speculators. Mr. Speaker, I've also learned that before someone hits the ground, you'll find instances where a company has exchanged hands more than 10 times. Someone has gone, applied for a license, given a license, sold it to the speaker, then sold it to Naisula, then sold it to Owen, then sold it to some farm in Canada, that one sells to China. All that time that they're speculating and gaining profits, the Kenyan people are losing. They are losing. It's only that I am, and this is a task I'm going to take, because it looks like Kenyan population really do not have an idea of what geological minerals may be in the country. They must get involved, and I'll take it upon me to ensure they get involved. So I identify completely with your sentiments, Honorable Naisula, and this is an urgent matter that must be discussed and be realigned in a manner that works and defeats those cartels. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Naisula told me nitaongea na.
You don't have to answer that. Only fools don't change their mind.
I was going to say it in Kiswahili.
Go and answer the other question.
Wapumbavu tu ndo wabadilishe mawazo.
There is a question on communities.
I'm coming to that.
Yes.
Number one, I've already picked an issue on, for example, timely disbursement of royalties. Mr. Speaker, I was talking to some people from Taita Taveta County, some community, who told me they have not received their share of royalties on a certain mine for the last 7 years. That can't work. What we need to quickly do is to ensure we create systems that function. And number one priority is that the Kenyan people primarily should be priority in terms of receiving their royalties and benefits. Mr. Speaker, we also have to have a conversation. I am looking forward, for example, to quickly engage the counties. The counties, according to the current law, receive a good chunk of royalties. Maybe we may need to look at our legal framework on how we can also cushion the communities in the counties by ensuring that we maybe ring fence some of the resources to development. Why do I say this, Mr. Speaker? You know very well. Geological minerals do get depleted. There are generations that will come many, many years after us, and this country must have something to show. We can't, it just can't be a story that Kenya had this and there's nothing to show. So, Mr. Speaker, I am going to engage and create working synergies with the counties and formulate, create a framework that is efficient in disbursing royalties. And also, if I go a step further, these communities must be organized. We must organize them. We must encourage them to get into cooperatives. We must encourage them in some instances. And I like that question because it gives me an opportunity to address something that we call back home as ancestral interests. Many of our populations, and it's not only in the coastal region, are squatters, Mr. Speaker. I saw that during the SGR. When they were constructing the SGR, Mr. Speaker, many people were compensated. But the title holders and the residents of certain areas were completely ignored. So there are certain regulations or laws that we must, and I'd be happy to come and engage the community to see how we can improve on them. Mr. Speaker, on Honorable Koech, I haven't seen the Gemstone Center at Voi, but I'm looking forward to see it. But what I think the mining industry needs to do is to focus on private sector investment. Government should not be in the business of competing with its citizens. So there has to be concerted effort and specific focus to encourage private sector investment. Why do I say so, Honorable Koich? Because they will meet the global standards. I am not sure whether the Jameson Center in Voi is properly equipped to test and process what they get. That is an urgent business for me. And I'm going to look into it as soon as I have an opportunity of possibly if this honorable committee approves me. So that we even are able to test, identify what minerals should be allowed for export, what should be kept home for value addition, and what should be put in the market and what values. And I have seen it. I have seen people from Voi coming into Mombasa with a small packet of many, many gemstones and almost sell them at wholesale price. Someone else picks them up, some foreigner will pick it up, go to Hong Kong, go to Thailand, and make double or triple the money that, that Kenyan ordinary man would. So I will look into that as a matter of urgency, Honorable Koich, and I'm hoping that I see the passion. It will work together.
Posing, then Gikaria, then Emase. In that order. Take those three.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Joe, I hear you talk about policies and systems. Should you get the favor of the House, my proposal will be concentrated on the actions. If you live in these policies and systems, you will leave that office with systems and policies having not been approved. So that's my advice. But my question is, the governors who have been ministers, Honorable Joe, have not gotten a good rating from where I sit. They have been accused of being desk ministers, governors, former governors. I don't know whether they got a lot of comfort when they were governors or they became two bosses when they were governors, and therefore they are not actually seen in the field. What will you convince this committee to believe in you? And particularly, I think I like the word you said, that what we lack is confidence. I think it's true, because I come from a mineral county, which is West Pokot. Confidence of investors coming to invest, and also confidence of the people accepting investors. What will you convince this committee, Honorable Joe, that you will be in these mineral counties in building confidence, and for both sides, the investors or you will go to Mombasa, because now blue economy in Mombasa, will you also be in mineral counties to build confidence? Thank you, Speaker.
Can I?
Three. Ikaria,
Thank you.
just record and answer them quickly in the order they came. Ikaria, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman.
Switch off your mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the exploration is something that the nominee has said he's going to look into, and I'm saying this in relation to the corporation, the National Mining Corporation, which is a corporation of government, which is in exploration and does nothing other than just getting salaries and doing nothing in exploration. As we look at, I was trying to look at the law as to whether we have timelines for exploration. I remember in the Energy Act, we have 2 years for exploration. After that, your license expires. The other bit that also needs, you need to look at is the Mineral Rights Board, the licensing board that gives, there is a lot of bureaucracy in terms of giving licenses on time. It's like they don't have a service charter for, if you apply today, by what time should you be able to get your license. But the most important thing is, let me talk about the artisanal miners. Honorable nominee, artisanal miner is a big area of employment. And of course, we know there is a cooperative that has come in place. But again, the licensing of these cooperatives and artisanal miners has become an issue with the Mineral Rights Board. So what are you going to do to help our young men and people who work in doing artisanal mining across the country, who do the illegal mining per se in quotes, but who have been applying through cooperatives, and then it takes forever for them to be able, and getting very, very bad prices or bad for the product that they get from the mines. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Mary Mase.
Thank you, Speaker. Nominee, my first one's a comment. It's good that you mentioned about redesigning our training programs. Through you, Speaker, recently the Maritime Authority advertised for jobs for Kenyans to work in the vessels. And the requirement was just basically training in hospitality, front office, and a foreign language, which is German. But I put it to you, they could hardly raise the numbers that were needed. So seriously, it is an area of concern because we are losing out on opportunities as Kenyans, yet we're talking about unemployment. So, Honorable Nominee, if approved, I think that is one of the areas you need to seriously focus on to ensure that we're training in all disciplines related to maritime so that we can benefit from the opportunities. So my question is, and this is from a Kenyan, in 2010, the then internal security minister, the late Honorable George Saitoti, tabled a list in parliament containing 4 members of parliament, including yourself as a suspected drug trafficker. The US Embassy also stated that Kenya anti-narcotic unit suspected that you were involved in narcotic trade. Are you aware of these grave allegations and the effects of drug addiction in our nation? If so, kindly shed some light on that. Thank you.
Answer those 3.
Honorable Kosing, my record speaks for itself. I was not in any way a desk governor. I am a ground person. I am a ground person. That is why I left Mombasa County with the best cardiac center in the country and possibly in the continent. I left Mombasa County with state-of-the-art cancer treatment center. I left the county with a lot of social development programs that are on record. So I'm just picking a few. Mr. Speaker, today if I have a cardiac issue, I want to tell you, and I will encourage all of you and those that have visited Mombasa, if you have a cardiac issue, Coast General is your place. Because they have the state-of-the-art cath lab with well-trained doctors that constantly do open-heart surgeries, fix cardiac issues quickly, and that was my leadership. So I provide leadership, and I will. And in the mining and blue economy and maritime, if you approve me, I will hit the ground running, Mr. Speaker. On matters of licensing, I don't know whether this committee understands the process that is applied on licensing, but I'll quickly share from what I found out. And I'm saying that this I found out from the private sector. Number 1, you go to the potential area and engage either the landlord or the communities or the county. Then you get a consent. Then online, there is what they call the cadastre that covers the whole country in potential areas in matters mining. Then once you have the consent, you peg on the cadastre. And then at that point, you do a physical license application. And I've already heard of many instances that people have falsified documents to peg on the cadastre. That is number 1 hindrance on efficiency on issuing license. Because then therefore, a true potential, and this basically mostly is done by speculators. So the true potential investor does not get an opportunity to even apply. So we first of all must fix how we handle the pegging. We must have technological means of ensuring that whatever is used to peg a site meets the standards. I have had, for example, someone would just upload a newspaper, and that acts as a consent, because the technology currently doesn't have the ability to authenticate some of those documents that are uploaded. So what do I say? I say we need to digitize end to end. We must digitize it end to end. And Mr. Speaker, let me put it this way. Even in our own country, I know for sure, for certain, there are young people with enormous capacity and potential to help us develop. I must also say that I was taken by surprise when during Mandamanos there are some young Kenyans who quickly developed and designed a communication program. And people are communicating like an app overnight. It tells you our young people have the capacity. And for me, Mr. Speaker, if I'm approved, my urgent and priority first step is to involve the young people. They can help us grow. They can help us fix many things locally. Like, for example, I believe something like a cadastre, where it holds a lot of information that is very strategic for the country, must be fully hosted here. Cannot be hosted, for example, by a competing country. So for us, what do? We invest in technology end to end. Right now, I'm informed that they have done it, but there's quite a human interaction phase that we must try and do away. It will create efficiency. It will also deal with corruption issues. So I hear you, Mheshimiwa, and I can tell you that that will be my priority. And also, I want to talk on the artisanal miners and licensing. They go through similar challenges, Mr. Speaker. They go exactly how a private sector investor suffers is the same way, unfortunately, the artisanal miner also suffers. So that, for me, is something that I must look into. For me, Kenyans must be allowed to exploit their wealth so that they can better their lives in a manner that is organized, safe, and most importantly, beneficial to them. So that I will do. Mheshimiwa Imase, you talked about training. I couldn't agree more that we must design our programs or the architecture of training in a manner that fits the needs of the players. We must do that. I mean, there's no two ways. What do I think I will do? Obviously, I will begin by evaluating the Bandari Academy. But I'm going also to try and forge partnership with, for example, Technical University of Mombasa, the universities around the lake areas, and many others, because those job opportunities are not only for the coastal people. They are not only, they're for every Kenyan. And therefore, we must create a partnership in designing an architectural plan that conforms to what the industry needs. And I will work closely with private sector. Mr. Speaker, finally, Honorable Emase talked about a citizen that sent you SMS.
A question on SMS.
On the drug baron issue. You know, the irony for me is that when you want to pick records selectively, that is what challenges me. The quagmire for me is I don't understand. If you come and table a report, obviously there must be some subsequent actions. And I want to also, this is one matter that I really hope we can put to permanent closure, Mr. Speaker. When I was campaigning in 2013, in Mombasa, there were billboards put up. Don't vote the baron, vote change. Mr. Speaker, let me begin with that report. Yes, I thought it tabled the report on a dossier that he was given, that was passed to him through the American embassy. What normally happens is that when you table or pass a dossier, it is investigated, I believe. It is worked on. So that happened. The late Honorable Saitoti, may the Almighty rest his soul in eternal peace, came back to Parliament with a report. He came back to Parliament and tabled a report of investigation and the outcome. And it was a multi-agency, almost international investigation that clearly stated, and I'm going to only speak for myself, that no iota of evidence was found against me. Mr. Speaker, let me put it this way. I'm not a fool. I come from a family that is blessed with businesses. And I am thankful to Almighty for what I have. So number one, that investigation was concluded. Number two, Honorable Emasi, first term as governor, I was the greatest critic of the Jubilee administration. Had lots of personal altercation. They came after me in businesses, in many fronts. Don't you think for a minute, if I was involved in any illegal activity, I would have survived that regime? They would quickly have used it to, like they say, I remember, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, just indulge me a minute. I remember at that time, the president came to Mombasa and said, "Tutamalizana na huyu." They would have used it. So please, Kenyans, I want to assure you here today that I do clean business. Visible, that can be audited, can be seen, physical, and therefore, please, Mr. Speaker, if anybody talks about a report that was tabled on the dossier, also talk about the report that came after that, that cleared us. And I am particularly interested because first point on for me to call and try and interest investors to come, I am planning to go to the United States. They are known for big investments in mining, and it is my plan to go and engage them, interest companies from the United States.
The same Americans gave you a visa to accompany me as foreign minister to the US.
Exactly, Mr. Speaker, just after that. In fact, just after the I went.
Immediately after that.
And I've been to America many times, and I intend to continue to go to America, because America really, Mr. Speaker, I think we're going to be looking that way to get investors to come and invest, particularly in the areas of mining. So, Mr. Speaker, that matter, again, I hope it comes to permanent closure. Because it's all
but don't
like education, it comes up only when they are seeing an opportunity.
But don't be pigeonholed to America. There are even bigger mining countries like Australia.
No, in Canada, Australia.
Others, yes.
And even here, by the way, Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you know, I've just found out, in fact, just yesterday, that Kenyans have invested heavily in mining in Tanzania. So even here we have them.
Are you talking about me?
Daud Morogara, order nominee, no altercations with members. Daud Morogara, then Owen, in that order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. To the nominee, Honorable Joho, what you have said about cadastral and all that, your predecessor, when he was there, Honorable Vuria, when he came for vetting in 2022, he talked about the NIS doing prospecting for all the minerals in the country. And there are minerals in Meru County, by the way, in Beo. But unfortunately, even by the time he left, he never visited Meru. So my first question to you would be, like what Honorable Posing has said, you may be a desk CS if you are approved. What will happen, I hope, because you know Meru is cold and Mombasa is hot, and you're used to the hot weather, you may feel very cold in Meru. And the same thing, on the same there has been exploration of copper and gold in Meru. But unfortunately, the company which was prospecting, a Kenyan company, Goita Mining Limited, has been bought out by Avira Resources Limited of Australia. So my question would be, do you think that we as Kenyans will benefit, or will the benefit be for outsiders who come prospecting in Kenya and taking away everything what is there? The second question, because that was one question, Mr. Speaker, there is a question from one of our viewers, and he says, the Auditor General, that is now for the time you were as a governor in Mombasa, that there is an Auditor General report about garbage, a 1 billion shilling garbage tender, which was given to some of your relatives in Mombasa. And there is even talk that it is not Ali Hassan or Hassan Ali Joho who handled Mombasa County. It was a relative of his. I would not mention him for, it would not be right, but it was not you who were running. You were running the political part. The other part was being run by somebody else. Can you confirm or deny? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nominating, make a distinction between Meru and Tharaka Nithi. He's been talking about Meru. If I'm to say anything, it will be on Tharaka Nithi. The two are separate and distinct.
You are actually vetting the nominee on behalf of the people of Kenya.
No.
Not your constituencies, not your counties.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we have questions to ask.
Ask
and
the question,
we have to draw that
but avoid the temptation to appear that you are vetting nominees on behalf of your constituencies or your counties.
I agree, Mr. Speaker, but Mr. Speaker, some questions are relevant. We have to draw.
Sir, I'm not curtailing you at all. Go on and ask.
Thank you very much for the distinction. Nominee, you began when you were responding to a question by stating that what it is that Liberia gets right and we get it wrong. And here you were talking about maritime affairs, the sea vessels. And I don't know whether you know the historical background, why Liberia is actually the largest flag carrier in respect of ships. And that also goes with, it has the highest number of shipwrecks in the high seas, purely because most of those ships are condemned in their countries, and this is the reason why they find solace in going to Liberia to get national flag. So I do not know whether you wish Kenya also to take that route and emulate that. You respond. Number two, a question from a viewer who wants to know really whether the nominee is familiar with the minerals found in the country and where those minerals are to be found, including my own county, Tharaka Nithi, and my constituency, Tharaka. Then the third one is on fisheries. We have what are known as Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institutes spread across the country. Some of them are stored. They started building, but halfway they collapsed. If you are approved by this House, nominee, do you confirm that you would embrace the policy of completing those institutes, because some of them are actually meant for marine research in the hinterland? Thank you.
Thank you, George. Don't feel like I curtailed you. I was just giving direction to everybody. Owen?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to request the following information from our nominee one. Listening to you, Honorable Ali Hassan Joho, you come through as a hustler that has come from the bottom up, bottom there, coming up through many struggles. And the very many lessons that we learned from your interaction in this committee. As you sit, if approved by this committee, if you sit in cabinet, how do you help to encourage the hustlers, especially in the mining, in the fisher folks in this case in Kenya, are basically hustlers who are trying to make it in life?
probably you are a good example of that. How do you intend to really bring in that to cabinet and assist the cabinet really to help the hustlers in this country who seem to have given up? Secondly, how do you use your experience in business? I can see you have good credentials in business and you've come up as a businessman. How do you intend to bring in those credentials in your business field and your experience also as governor who chaired a cabinet at the county level to assist the cabinet to really meet the aspirations of the young people who are actually hustlers, who seem to be giving up, the Gen Zs who seem to be giving up in life? How do you intend to bring that experience to help Kenyans? My second question is that specifically to the marine area, there is a marine spatial plan that has been in the works for many years. It has never succeeded, has never taken off. Many people in the marine industry are waiting for that spatial plan. How soon can this country realize a spatial plan in the marine area? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You can take those, nominee.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Let me begin first of all by the spatial plan issue. And I believe strongly in planning from an informed position and real-time data management and collection. Basically, if even land use is critical, that is properly planned. So this, for me, is urgent, and I'm going, if approved, to ask that it be expeditiously done, because it is important. Honorable Owen, sorry, I'm starting with you, Owen. My experience as a businessman and as a public officer, and I am glad that I've served in different spectra. I was once an assistant minister, got a lot of guidance at that time from the Honorable Speaker. He was my mentor, actually, in Parliament. I participated strongly in matters of legislation. I remember the NTSA formation was done under my watch at the 10th Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And the acumen stature of business I got is for literally experience. And Mr. Speaker, I've run quite fairly big business, and I bring that on board to be able to capture the ideology of a business sector, combine it with public sector, so that we can be able to deliver on behalf of the country. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure Honorable Owen, those wavuvis or fisher folks or artisan fishermen, they need help. They need help to be organized. They need, for example, we must find means, whether by way of partnership or government funding or private sector. And this, for me, is an area of interest because I am aware of the Go Blue conversation. Many young Kenyans have been sponsored, but we need really now to start sponsoring them for deep sea fishing. Because even if they use what they have today, they can achieve that much. But if we get them to go deep sea fishing, then now for me, that will be the game changer. And that is what I will undertake to do if this committee approves me. Mr. Speaker, on matters of stalled projects, government should not have any stalled project. You must plan well. Mheshimiwa Murugara. Government should not have stalled projects. We must develop plans that do work. So that when you start something, you must finish. And like Owen asked, I gained that experience from private sector practice. Value for money and timely delivery is critical. So expect that we'll have a conversation. First of all, I'm not in a position today to say I know all the stalled projects, but we will have a conversation and develop a clear plan to be able to complete the stalled projects. We don't want a situation where we embark on new projects and we leave the old ones stalled. My brother Dawood, you talked about NIS prospecting report. I'm not in a position right now to comment about it. But I have an issue on communication that must improve. And I would urge even my colleagues in other ministries that ministries must help the president to communicate to Kenyans. If we had a clear communication plan, you probably wouldn't need this opportunity to ask, what do we have in the country? So I will go to the ministry if approved, learn what they have, and I promise I will communicate to the Kenyan public of what they have. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Dawood asked on exploration of gold and copper in Meru, and the fact that the miners or the mining company exchange hands. I think the fact that companies do exchange hands doesn't mean the law on royalties change. It should remain, and they should continue to pay royalties both to the communities, county government, and national government. So I doubt if the government would lose. The only thing that I am concerned about, and I think we collectively should, is the testing of minerals. Whether we have that capacity in the country. Because I'm told, I took some time and called some minister friend I have in another country that's very successful in mining. I'm told in instances where you mine copper, you are very likely to get good deposits of gold. But what the miners do is that they only report copper. So therefore, we urgently need to enhance our testing capacity and ground truthing. And I will happily visit you in Meru, in Tharaka, in Migori. I'll go to Suna, I'll go to Kikuyu, I'll go to Turkana. Turkana has the potential of exporting large quantity of what they call mango tilapia. Huge market for mango tilapia in DRC. I have to go there and see how we can improve on that. I will go to Busia for gold and value addition. I'll go to Kakamega and the larger Western. Everywhere where there's potential for minerals, I will go to ensure, first of all, we involve the communities, we work with the counties, we secure the communities, we engage on matters of environmental impact. So I will be visiting every part of this country, Mr. Dawood, including Tharaka and Meru. And Pokot. And Kosin is a fairly blessed man. I hope he'll host
everywhere.
Me. And everywhere.
Yes.
But I want Kosin to undertake that he'll host me when I go there. So prepare some sumptuous cuisine. On the 1 billion tender, I saw it. Mr. Speaker, let me confirm. This is a matter that was audited, dealt with, investigated by the anti-corruption and the DC and everybody, and it was concluded. First and foremost, it has never been 1 billion. The contract, yes, it was a tender advertised. Someone won the bid, not from my family. My family is in the logistics business. They are extremely busy. In fact, sometimes I struggle to encourage them to help me with social programs under our foundation. They are too busy. They have no time to do government business. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, just to put to the record, my family does not do business with any government entity. We are in logistic business in Tanzania, in Uganda, in South Sudan, in Dubai, and here in Kenya. So please be assured, my family is not in any way involved in that tender. And the actual amount that was being investigated, Mr. Speaker, was just about 200 million paid to the company that won the bid over a period of 3 years. The way it is portrayed is like I went to the county coffers with a check of 1 billion and gave to my cousin. That is not the case. It was a tender, advertised, someone applied. It's only that I cannot mention the name of the guy who won the tender. But even him, he did bid in that tender for just helping us to achieve certain environmental standards. He was already a big billionaire. So he's such a setup just and he outbid everybody. So in the period of 3 years, Mr. Dawood paid 290 million. And it was investigated and concluded.
We also received some memorandum on that. You've answered all the three. Now let's go to Robert Mbui.
Mr. Speaker, I haven't answered the issue on Liberia.
Okay.
And it is very important.
Okay.
And I want to inform Honorable Murugara that, yes, there may be historical issues. But you know what? You call them abandoned or condemned vessels. I want to enlighten you. I'm actually going to encourage those condemned vessels to come to Kenya for one purpose: distraction. It's a big business opportunity. Honorable Murugara, I don't know whether you are aware. The maritime standards set on the time period a vessel should be sailing is very strict. Where do I see the opportunity? I have seen India is big, Singapore is big on vessel destruction. So I would also encourage private sector here. Let those condemned vessels come, we demolish them, and help our steel industry. It will be a game changer for our steel industry. One, first of all, the owner of the vessels pays to bring the vessel, and they pay for destruction, and we remain with the steel. So it is what we do with it. For me, so Mr. Murugara, I see there a great opportunity that we must engage in. Sumra atafurahi sana.
Robert, then Stephen, then Didoras, in that order.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have just a quick comment and then one question. To the nominee, you know, Africa is rich in mineral resources and other raw materials, yet we remain poor in the world of community of nations. And from my research, and Kenya is also very rich in minerals. And like you've said, you know, it contributes very, very small percentage of our GDP. But despite that, nominee, there are also a lot of billionaires, not very many, but a number of billionaires in Kenya out of this issue of minerals. So maybe you need to help Kenya to be able to achieve its objectives in this industry. But then I have a question, and it's not mine, it's a submission, and that will help us test your integrity. And I've heard you say you want to clear the air on matters out there in public domain. This is a submission that was given to this committee in an affidavit, but did not conform to Section 6/9 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. But we have agreed that it's important that we field these questions for you to clear the air. Now, this is a gentleman who says that as governor of Mombasa County, your administration awarded a tender to construct a county stadium at a cost of taxpayers' money to the tune of 1.8 billion. Now, a report by the Auditor General for the financial year that ended June 2023 showed that the county stadium was yet to be completed, this is many years later, despite the construction beginning in 2018. Now, consequently, the Office of the Auditor General could not ascertain the value for money of the expenditure incurred on the proposed development of the sports complex, and this could therefore risk cost escalation and project termination. Kindly explain the extent of your involvement in the matter and whether the stadium has since been constructed so that you could allay the public.
Stephen?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome, nominee, governors and Ali Joho, former. Blue economy is 1.5 trillion US dollars globally, whereby it creates more than 30 million jobs. And my question is that as you approved or get favor from this committee, you need to look at Kenyans and the young people on how to tap in this space of 30 million jobs to make sure that the young people in this country get those opportunities. On a lighter one, I've perused your questionnaire which you filled, and I believe you have a number, but I think it's a typo error. You gave the number for Safaricom, 0722 000 000. Can you clarify?
Thank you, Mr.
We'll take the next. Russell.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Hassan, as soon as I am here, as soon as your name hit the media, people in Mombasa were on the streets, young and old, all of them. A few days later, one of the MPs said, now Hassan Ali Joho should become a cabinet. He should not come back to local politics. My first question is there potential of conflict that you want to be a cabinet minister and also interfere with local politics in Mombasa? You need to clear there. The second question, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Hassan Joho is a businessman, and you deal with many things, logistics, jewelry, all of that. We are giving you mining. Mining today is done by the locals in Navakolo, Ikolomani, Homa Bay, in Moyale, in Marsabit, where they do gold and other minerals, and they eke out living through that. Tell us, we as Kenyans, you are looking for private investors. Do we see the potential that you get private investors so that the locals, the communities, will be locked out? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, let me just clarify that my family is not in jewelry business. We are in logistics, obviously diversified a little bit in real estate and trading. Let me ascertain that we are in this industry that is called service industry. We don't work with government. We've never worked, my family has never worked with government. We don't do business with government. We're a straightforward business, and I assure you that we will not do business with government. We have enough already, as it were, to deal with. On the question of the comments by the Honorable MP, no, in Mombasa, on the same one, on the comments, I want to tell you, I now serve the nation. And in fact, I will make efforts to even unite those that are in Mombasa. I must help the president unite the country. And therefore, I must rise above local, divisive conversations. Every Kenyan must be served equally across board. So if there's anything I'm going to do, is to actually endeavor to unite Kenyans and even leaders even more. So be rest assured, politicians have their space, they can say what they say, but if I'm approved, I serve the nation, and I want to assure this House I will do anything to see a Kenyan that is united. Mr. Speaker, on my telephone number, let's begin there. I wonder the kind of calls that I'm going to get today. But you missed out on a digit, so I'll tell you later. Because I can be salimiwad. But yes, it has those many zeros. I may have gotten some shares maybe from on a light note, Mr. Speaker. So I want to also say that I agree with the Honorable Stephen on the space in the blue economy. And Mr. Speaker, if there's one thing that this country needs to focus on, is mining and blue economy. I believe if we take the right strategy, we deploy the right strategy, we can even remove ourselves from the hole of debt using our own resources.
We can. We can. And we should. And therefore, I'll make it my business to ensure systems that work are deployed, processes that are efficient are used, so that we also can help this country move from the burden it is in today. And I believe strongly that this ministry is a ministry of wealth creation and employment opportunity. And that will be my focus if you approve me. Mr. Speaker, someone touched, Honorable Roberts, you touched on Mombasa Stadium and the GDP contribution. By the way, from what I read, when I was doing my research, I saw that Kenya was reporting 1% contribution to the GDP. But that included Base Titanium, which was actually the largest mining company in Kenya, which closed shop and left. So even if you remove now what Base Titanium is to contribute, we could be even lower to maybe 0.5%. And there we quickly need to start moving so that we embark on getting real investment and in real time. Finally, Mr. Speaker, is the stadium. I saw that affidavit. Now let me tell you what Mombasa was planning to do at that time. The idea of building a stadium was conceptualized around 2019 towards the end. We wanted to build a world-class stadium. Designed, put it up for tender. The tender was won by a Turkish company in partnership with a local company. So the stadium that we had wanted to build in Mombasa was a modern stadium that is built mostly by steel. And that is why physically you may not see the work done when you go to the ground. But I want to assure this House, and this has been a matter of investigation. It has been investigated by the Public Works. Even that Auditor General report, when it went to the Senate, it was cleared. It was not investigated by the Ministry of Sports, that all the earthworks have been completed. So what was remaining is to bring the steel bit of the stadium and just install, which I was made aware that 70% thereabout of it had been completed in Turkey. And it was just not a basic stadium. In there was multi-purpose hall, amphitheater, Olympic-sized swimming pool, and the rest of the facilities. Now, where we faced the challenge, 2019, we award a contract. 2020, hit hard by COVID. And obviously, as a leader, like many of you did, is to first of all find means and ways to cushion your people. Mombasa, at that time, announces 50% waivers on all levies because of COVID. So a sudden drop, significant drop of our local revenue. Then, subsequently, the Revenue Allocation Commission re-engages on a new formula that made Mombasa lose 2 billion shillings. 2 billion shillings. We moved from an allocation of 8 billion to 6 billion. So that completely ruined every single plan we had to complete even that. I even remember I placed a call at that time to the president and informed him that we have awarded a contract that is 1.7 billion. COVID has forced us to waive levies to cushion Kenyans. Our allocation is lost by 2 billion. How are we going to pay for this stadium? And I invited at that time the national government, please come on board and help us to complete this. Because it's already, as I speak today, I'm aware it's already completely done in Turkey. If we have resources, we pay and they come, they install. If they come within 2 months, you have a stadium up and running because all the earthworks are completely done. So I assure you, first of all, It's not 1 billion that has been paid. What has been paid for earthworks and part of the steel, and also 30% of the steel is already in Mombasa. If you visited the stadium today, you will see they've already put up one side of the stadium as a sample. So, first of all, amount spent, no, not 1 billion, just about 400 million. Earthworks are done, 30% of the steel is in Mombasa, 70 is in Turkey, and I hope, and I want to encourage even my current governor to engage. I know he's doing it. He's talking to national government because they're still struggling with the resources. So that allegation, be rest assured. Tender was done above board, money, value for money for certain, investigation completed, no issues at all was raised by the relevant institutions. So, what was the question, Mr. Speaker?
The question was, by bringing in mega international investors, are you going to disenfranchise the local artisan miners?
No, this is what I think should happen. Obviously, for us to make meaning of what we exploit, we must encourage international investors. But I also appreciate that if Kenyan people or companies do invest, they have a greater advantage because all the dollars that are paid now will land where? Here. And for me, there's two fronts. One, artisanal miners can be organized. And by the way, we should even look at the law if we can encourage that if you are licensing a big company, for example, to mine copper, say in Busia County, we can, in the same spirit, organize local people. If we are allocating 10 acres, why can't we hire, for example, 2 acres, train local artisanal miners, equip them to make sure they are safe, because safety is a great issue, so that they can also participate in the building of the nation. And that really is a matter we are going to engage in collectively so that we cushion our people, so that exploitation does not negatively impact the people of Kenya.